times now, Alisan Tarkan, and may I introduce him as a dear friend and colleague who's working on many projects, and he's the scientific head of this event. Welcome.
Okay, hi everyone. As a last presentation of today, I try to be brief as much as I can. I know because I can imagine that you're already bored and tired, but I'll try to like I said to be brief. It's usually not so expected to have some presentations from the organization committee, but these results are quite interesting, so I wanted to present here because it's all related to the project. So I want to give you some first information how why we started to why we decided to do this study, because it's kind of one of the activities actually. So-called determination of the effects of 6 invasive alien species in the terrestrial and inland waters. This is one of the activities of the project. Then, as a fish expert, as a team here, we've been working for 2 years now, more than 2 years now. It's almost 3 years as a project duration to understand 2 invasive species in some pilot areas on the native communities, impact of these invasive species on the native communities. So we studied this pilot area for gibel carp in Seyitler Reservoir. It is like 3 hours drive from here. It's a reservoir, and reservoirs are quite common in Turkey. So this is one of them, and it's been designated when we started to this project. So we had to work on this reservoir, and then also the species. But species, gibel carp, is apparently one of the maybe the most invasive freshwater fish species in Turkey. So this is quite relevant. But the reservoirs are also quite relevant in terms of their commonality, and also this kind of introduction of unwanted invasive species, non-native species, then became invasive in a short while. So the first evidence, first results we got that this fish species is overlapping and sharing their habitat, trophic habitat, with one of the most stocked fish in Turkey, which is common carp. As Rob Britton talked about it a lot in terms of management and policy, this is quite relevant to my talk here, because common carp is also a kind of a big problem at the same time, but at the same time maybe it's a socio-economic asset. So we need to find this balance somehow. But in our case study, we found out among other fish species, this is the only one who overlap trophic niche in this reservoir, which is our pilot study area. So yeah, like I said, common carp is the most stocked fish in Turkey. There are actually some hatcheries to produce these fish species to just stock in across the country. So this is the way how this fish species is also introduced into Seyitler Reservoir. But gibel carp, it's kind of unknown how to be introduced in these lakes and reservoirs. There are some guesses, but still, this kind of controversial issue. But you see, there is. I will share with you. Probably you won't see it, but it's quite small. But it shows that since 1992 to 1919, there have been introduced like between 4 million and 6 million fingerlings common carp all over Turkey, especially the newly established reservoirs. So this is quite a big amount of introduction. So the main idea is to just support the fisheries and angling, and especially for the people who lost their living costs, to somehow compensate it, somehow cover their losses in these areas. When it is decided to establish a new reservoir, that means there is a big loss of a land area, maybe which is productive. So the people living there apparently lose their jobs, their living costs, and there is a need to compensate it. So this is the way these fish species and also gibel carp somehow introduced. And then based on these results, because we have been seeing this consistently for a long time since starting the project, that their niches are overlap significantly. So we thought that we maybe should see not only one reservoir, but also series of some water bodies, so that we can claim that, okay, this is the consistent pattern. So maybe based on this, we can suggest some management implications, some management actions. It's starting this idea, we composed our aims, and based on this aim, the several hypotheses. Here you see our aim, general aim is to see these trophic interactions of common carp with gibel carp in a series of natural and artificial water bodies. And then we used a bulk of stable isotope approach. So I'm going to talk about a bit more, but not in detail too much because it's quite technical. But we use these trophic isotopic niche overlaps mainly. So our hypothesis based on this aim, the first hypothesis is that there's a high niche overlap between common and gibel carp. So that this is the one that we already observed in this Seyitler Reservoir, the pilot area in our project. Then second one, artificial water bodies facilitates the gibel carp impact. The third one is presence of a non-native predator alters these interactions. And in this case, this is perch, Perca fluatilis, as a top predator of these newly, especially established reservoirs. It's quite common to introduce by anglers because quite popular fish for anglers. And a final hypothesis is the common carp favors absence of gibel carp. So we have some predictions based on this hypothesis. Our first prediction is common carp and gibel carp use the same resources. The second one is the gibel carp has a wider niche in reservoirs. A third one is the gibel carp avoids predator pressure. And the last is in the absence of gibel carp, common carp occupies a wider niche. So these are the hypotheses and predictions we've been discussing for a long time with my team here. So we decided to, based on our available data, to understand if they are really, this hypothesis has been confirmed or not. So I will show you some photos from the natural and artificial water bodies that we sampled. Apart from the Seyitler Reservoir, we have been sampling several reservoirs and natural lakes all over Turkey, but mainly in the inner Anatolia. But there is also some one, I think, Lake Gala is in the Terias region, a European part of Turkey. So they have different fish community structures. For instance, in Ajiga, we have only a common carp. Out of these three spaces, common carp, gibel carp, and perch. Of course, there are some other fish species, but they are kind of irrelevant. So I'm going to talk about only with these three fish species. The second one is Lake Iznik. There is only gibel carp and a common carp there, and then the last one is Gala, Lake Gala, and then three of these species are available in Lake Gala. But as a reservoirs, we have more water bodies with the reservoirs. You see in total 6 different water reservoirs we sampled, and then they have a different fish community structures, as you see, and this gave us the opportunity to see this variable and to test if these hypotheses and predictions we come up with is true or not. But still, one can ask, so why, I mean, how you control this variability? Because, I mean, if it can depend on several factors, environmental factors and fish community structures differences. So we just tried, we just analyzed individual base if there is this initial hypothesis somehow true or not. And then for this, you see on the upper panel, we did 2 different water bodies apart from Seyitler Reservoir, because we already saw that this overlap. But in upper panel, we saw 2 reservoirs, and there's a high overlap between gibel carp and common carp. But in opposite way, it's there is no in one case no sorry in one case in Lake Gala there is no overlap at all. But the other lake, natural lake, is Iznik. There is slightly, but only some overlap. So our hypothesis somehow backed up with this evidence that we can test if there is a difference between water reservoirs and natural lakes. Also, in presence of some top predator like perch. So these are the all. For the perch, also we tested that if common carp or gibel carp given predator pressure of perch, which one is the more effective, which one less effective, affected. Sorry, and as you see in each cases, gibel carp is the less preferred or used food component of the perch. So this is also showed us there is some relevancy that gibel carp somehow managed to avoid from the predator pressure of the perch. In that way, we were able to combine this old data together, and then allow us to test all of our hypotheses and in the end our predictions. So I will go with some similar way to see if our hypothesis or predictions somehow supported or not. As you see in the first hypothesis, we want to see if there is a high trophic niche overlap between common carp and gibel carp. And our prediction is yes, common carp and gibel carp use the same resources probably. And this is somehow confirmed that as you see, gibel carp and common carp, somehow there's a high overlap, and then they used same resources. Apparently, only different or interesting result is here. Not so interesting, but gibel carp has had a wider niche area compared to common carp, but you see overlap is almost 50%. That they really used it same resources. So this hypothesis I would say it's confirmed. The second one is artificial water bodies somehow facilitates the gibel carp impact, and we predicted that gibel carp has a wider niche in reservoirs. So this is also although it seems a bit complicated, it also somehow confirmed. As you see in the lakes, in the natural lakes, they occupy a narrow or smaller niche area compared to reservoirs. But still, there is a catch here that both species actually was reacted differently, or not differently, but the same way, but not same not the same magnitude. I mean, both in natural lakes and reservoirs, they change their use of niche area, but gibel carps again had a wider niche. I mean, occupied a wider niche, especially in the reservoirs, and the difference was not so actually small. And our third hypothesis is a presence of non-native predator alters these interactions, and our prediction was gibel carp avoids predator pressure. And you see there is a, we tried to see by combination of single and combined data use, and you see there's also a different or interesting results. We got that in the perch absence, presence, both spaces and niche areas get enlarged. So they somehow give some kind of maybe biotic resistance or phenotypic response that they find this predator presence to react, to have more, I mean, a wider trophic niche area. So this is the result here, as you see. But the difference again in favor the gibel carp is actually significantly, because you see in the perch presence, gibel carp maybe only common carp only 2 times wider niche it gets, but this is in case of gibel carp is a third time more wider niche area it gets. So this is also somehow confirmed. And last hypothesis is common carp favors absence of gibel carp. So our prediction was that in the absence of gibel carp, common carp occupies a wider niche. So as you see, this is not so confirmed, because when you look at the total area of these niches, they are quite similar. And when you look at the when you look at the total area and somehow their niche overlap, there's no significant or remarkable, considerable results we get, then we easily reject this hypothesis in the light of this data. So what are our outcomes? First, gibel carp trophic niche size was larger than common carp, but their niche overlapped by almost 50%. And the second outcome, important outcome, is the both spaces occupied a larger niche in the reservoirs than natural lakes. This was clear, but gibel carp had slightly larger niche than common carp. And final one is this. This is kind of surprising, because our hypothesis was rejected somehow, that the same was true in the presence of perch, because except for considerably larger niche size of gibel carp than common carp, there are some kind of like I mentioned, it's just presumably this kind of phenotypic plasticity or response that they got a larger niche area when they encountered or when they face with some predator. This can be perch. In this case, this is the perch, but it can be also another apex predator, like Rob Britton mentioned in his talk, Ezox lucius, so pike. So this species also is quite common in Turkish reservoirs and the natural lakes. So this can be another resource for us to test in the future. The other important 2 outcomes. I'm getting to the end. Niche size were similar in size with common carp in presence and absence of gibel carp, but their niches were largely diverged. And mixing models consistently show that the gibel carp was the least prey choice, but the common carp were mostly one of the most preferred food items of perch. There were 2 other more preferred food items, but our focus was here to test between common carp and gibbal carp. So, for instance, roach, Rutilus was the top actually preferred food item of perch here, and also alburnus species. I don't know, I'm not sure the species, but as a genus, because it's slim, fit species, that's why probably. But gibbal carp somehow managed to find a way to fight back to this predator pressure. And finally, I want to overall that in terms of our management and policy regulations, we can say the common carp stocking could be a good complementary management option after successful removal of invasive gibbal carp, because in our project and also the in general perception is that we need to somehow remove this gibbal carp or control by doing some high pressure, fishing pressure. So maybe eradication is impossible, almost impossible. In some cases for common carp, it was possible based on the Rob Britton's talk, but I don't believe it is possible for gibbal carp in Turkey, for instance. So we already embraced the idea that, okay, we can't eradicate these fish species, but we can control it. So this is the way that in our project, as a practice way, that we did some removal, just a pilot testing, and then it worked. But when we do that, if there is no any other option for other than common carp, then in that case, maybe common carp is a good, how you call it, compensator of gibbal carp. When we remove the gibbal carp from the environment, then we can fill it up with the common carp. So in this case, because they use, as you see in my speech, they occupy largely the same niches and use the same resources. So this would be, because like I said, there is no any other way for us to do alternative spaces other than common carp, just establish hatcheries and produce some other species, because this common carp is already been produced here in Turkey. So this is the way that we can use it. And based on these project results, this seems possible. And yeah, especially this is possible more in some Anatolian reservoirs that we have sampled here in this study. And if there is no predator species, this seems to be more more effective. But this brings another problem, is that we should also be careful or be somehow find a way to mitigate these angling introductions all over across Anatolia, because this is getting quite common now, and especially in terms of perch. This is quite popular angling fish, and then anglers are kind of protective when you mention that, okay, this is another non-native species, can become invasive. So maybe there would be another control programs or something. They were quite productive, and they say, no, we like this fish species, so we don't want you to touch them. So this is another problem maybe we should be focusing on. Okay. Yeah, I know I talk too much, Philip, but sorry, there are lots of to talk. So thank you very much. Yeah, I especially to my team here, I put ready to race, because we have lots of data to be processed, and we have a long way to work on this data. But this is the first step, and I believe it's promising. Thank you very much for your attention and listening.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions? Anybody? No? Then I have a question, actually. Okay. You're talking about competition between gibbal and common carp, but is it the only cyprinid species which are causing issues in Turkey, or are there other cyprinids which are?
Well, In terms of competition, yes, there are only these two. I mean, all the time occupying the same niches, because there are, of course, lots of other endemic spaces, but at least in a body size and trophic position or feeding strategy, they are quite different. So as a niche, they're separating, diverged.
Yes, please. We need a microphone here.
Thank you for a very interesting presentation. I just remember one slide you showed that trophic niches of common carp and gibel carp in Gala Lake were quite separate from each other. What does it indicate? I mean that the different food variety or food availability is better in natural lake, because Gala Lake I suppose is natural lake.
Yes.
Than in artificial lakes. Is it correct?
Yeah, this is right. I mean, especially in the lakes like such as Gala, they have, I mean, vast variety of food choices. Also, fish communities are quite stronger than reservoirs. So this might be a reason that we need to focus on working, probably. But yes, I mean, it's kind of still surprising to see in natural lakes that they don't compete a lot, but in the reservoirs they each other. You know?
And I'm sorry for the last question. Sure. You said that perch prefers common carp more than gibel carp in its diet. Can you have any idea or explanation why it's so? For anatomic reasons, for behavioral reasons?
Yeah, probably behavioral reasons, because there is this, like I said, phenotypic response that when, especially there are some studies on other Carassus species, Carassus crucian carp, that experimentally it was proved that when a top predator like pike, for instance, when they put it in an aquarium together, and then common carp, crucian carp lonely, and then the body depth in a short time is getting higher and higher, kind of phenotypic response, and I suspect that this is the case in this gibel carp. Yeah. There is somebody's raising hand in the Zoom, but Ömer Öz. Just randomly. Okay. I'm listening. Ömer Bey, your microphone is off. Your microphone is off. You're muted. I think I see the same thing happening. Maybe he can ask later. Okay. There is this right handing. Yeah.
Merhaba, sunumunuzdan dolayı çok teşekkür ediyorum. Ben küçük bir katkı sağlamak istiyorum. Bu predatör balıklar sırt yüksekliğinden dolayı common carp olsun, diğer gibelio olsun, ikisi için de çok etkili olmuyor uygulamadan gördüğüm kadarıyla. Çünkü predatör balıklar ağız genişliğine göre daha çok böyle uniform formda, iyi şeklinde olan balıklar tercih ediyorlar. Ama küçük boyda yavruların kontrolünde etkili olursa balık büyüdükten sonra, belli bir büyüklüğe geldikten sonra maalesef predatörlerin hiçbir etkisi olmuyor. Çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Okay, ben teşekkür ederim. Sağ olun. Okay, thank you very much for your patience and participation. So we'll see you tomorrow morning then. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Serhan Hoca'ya sunumundan dolayı teşekkür ediyorum. Filip'e moderatörlüğünden dolayı teşekkür ediyorum. Bugünkü oturumların sonuna geldik. Katkılarınızdan dolayı sizlere de teşekkür ederim. Yarın sabah 9'da başlıyoruz. Herkese iyi akşamlar.